The next leg of my trip would involve me travelling from Osaka to Hiroshima, so to make the day a bit more interesting, I decided to stop off at Himeji and visit Himeji Central Park. The trip to Himeji Station was pretty simple, and I was able to find a locker to store my bag very easily. The buses, on the other hand, were initially a bit confusing, although some of the signs had a bit of English on them. I was able to buy a combination ticket to the park, and using Google Translate, eventually figured out which bus stop I needed to be at. After that, I was on my way to Himeji Central Park. The park actually consists of two separate areas, the amusement park area, which is 5 roller coasters, and a separate area, which is a safari park and zoo. Driving up to the park, you're met by Camelback Jet Coaster, the longest roller coaster in the park. So today I'm at Himeji Central Park, unsurprisingly near Himeji in the middle of Japan, and I've just ridden Jet Coaster, which is a jet coaster. It's very much the typical sort of these coasters, mainly built of like long straights, a few corners, and some almost but not quite airtime hills. It's fun, but it doesn't really seem to do all that much considering how big it is. There aren't many big drops on the coaster, so the average speed is pretty slow. It gives a nice scenic tour of the park though, and you get some nice views as you go around. Towards the end it does pick up a little bit of speed, but still not all that much. There's an airtime hill just as you go past the station that still manages to give you just a tiny bit of airtime before the end of the ride. Let's see what else we've got in the park. Next up would be Hurricane, one of 2 coasters in the park that feature inversions. So just ridden Hurricane, which is a Togo sit-down looping coaster. But it's actually better than I expected. I was expecting it to be pretty rough and uncomfortable, but it's not that bad. I rode in the front of it, which is actually the only place I can ride. I tried to sit in one of the seats further back, and ended up my legs were too long, so they wouldn't fit in the space below. So fortunately, the front car has a longer bit you can slide your legs into, so I managed to fit in that. It's got a few interesting transitions on it as well. There's actually an airtime hill behind me which transitions into a corkscrew, well, double corkscrew, in a slightly weird way. After going through the loop, it goes up into this airtime hill, but at the top of it, it does a slight twist to the left before going into a corkscrew twisting you to the right. The result of this is you get a much snappier transition, improving the flow of the ride and its overall smoothness. Also towards the end, there's a nice little airtime hill that you get a good little pop of floater air off of. On the way to the back of the park, I rode Labyrinth, which from a distance you might think looks like a wild mouse. It's actually more like a mini jet coaster, and considering its small footprint, it actually manages to pack quite a lot in. Next up, I would ride the park's best coaster, Diablo. So I'm here today at Himeji Central Park, riding Japan's only Batman clone. It's good fun. The drop's a little bit different because it almost goes into like a little gutter. It's sort of built onto the side of this mountain as well, so it doesn't look as steep as, it doesn't look as tall as the normal Batman rides, because like I say, it's almost verging on being a little bit of a terrain coaster at the start. In terms of force, it's one of the more forceful Batman clones out there. I've done quite a few around the world. There's one in Spain, which is really strange in that it doesn't really have any of the force you expect for the ride. And there's others in America which are just absolutely insane. This is more towards the more forceful side on it. You get a good feeling of G-force, particularly in the tight turns at the end. But yeah, it's good fun. It's Batman. I do love the way these coasters sound, particularly when it's set up in the mountains like this. some lunch and went to explore some of the park's non-coaster attractions. One of the most intriguing was this, Magic House, a small orange building containing unfathomable mysteries, made all the more unfathomable by the fact it was sadly closed when I went. I guess we'll never know what lay inside. Thankfully, there was another attraction which was open. So just did the shocking horror museum here at Himeji Central Park, and it was actually pretty good. The way it works is you have to go around and push 9 different red buttons around a very spooky dark room, well, a very spooky maze, and you're given a little pen torch to go around with. It is quite atmospheric because, like I say, you've only really got the light from the torch to show you where you're going, and the way they do it with you pushing the buttons, that sort of triggers effects usually in the room. So it's pretty good. I actually jumped quite a few times in it, which is rare for me in horror mazes. The last button was quite well done as well. Basically, it's in a bit you have to reach forward to, and then there's like a guillotine comes down and like almost chops your hand off, but obviously fake. It's good fun though, worth doing if you come to the park. As I mentioned earlier, the park is split across 2 different sections, the other part being a safari and zoo. You access this part via a safari bus, which takes you up the mountain through several different enclosures. Once at the top, there's a kind of petting zoo with a few surprises. There's also a pretty stunning view at the top, and a cable car which runs over the safari area. The park was generally one of the better zoos I've experienced in Japan. There was a good variety of animals, and they generally seemed pretty well looked after. One thing to bear in mind, however, is that once you ride the safari bus to the top of the park, there doesn't actually seem to be any way to get back to the amusement park area, except for another bus that didn't seem to run at very regular intervals. So plan your day accordingly so you don't end up stranded at the top of the park and unable to re-ride any of the coasters. There's also a kind of, a petting zoo with other things in it as well, from everything from turkeys to very fluffy chickens, piggies, and everything in between. Well, that was unexpected. Last time I was in Japan, I visited an owl cafe, and here I found a capybara cafe at Himeji Central Park. Yeah, you've got really friendly capybaras, and you can feed them and stroke them. They're really cute. But yeah, my next crazy Japan animal experience. I'd like you to meet my new friend. Now, you've possibly heard of cat and dog cafes, and this is an industry that's expanded in some weird and wonderful directions in Japan. Japanese homes are generally very small, and don't really have enough room for most families to have their own pets. This has led to the rise of specialist cafes, where people can go and interact with cats and dogs as if they were their own. This has somehow led to cafes filled not just with cats and dogs, but rabbits, guinea pigs, micro pigs, owls, llamas, hedgehogs, snakes, and as you can see, capybaras. This one worked by having an honesty box, where you paid 200 yen, about £1.50 or a little under $2, and selected a leafy branch to feed the capybaras with. They clearly were quite fond of these treats, and were very keen to get a hold of them, which led to a rather close encounter with one of the more adventurous capybaras. So yeah, as well as capybaras, there's a whole load of other animals here. I'm not even sure what these ones are. Hyrax, maybe? They're cute little deery sort of things. Look like a cross between rabbit and deer. But yeah, don't know what they are, but they're cute. We have some very fuzzy chickens. We also have goats. Now, I'm not a fan of goats. They also have an incredibly fluffy dog. Overall, I had a great day at Himeji Central Park. Sadly, I didn't get the chance to re-ride any of the coasters, as the safari took up quite a large chunk of time. Still, the Capybara Cafe was one of the best memories I had of the whole Japan trip. After returning to Himeji Station, I boarded a train bound for Hiroshima, which would serve as my base for the next leg of my tour of Japan. Tomorrow, I'd planned one of the longest day trips I'd ever make to a park. Check out the next episode for my visit to Greenland Amusement Park in the south of Japan. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.